Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. It's 5 minutes past 6 p.m. and you're with the Saturday 5. Over the next 3 hours, the biggest debates, I promise you they are, hottest topics and entertaining interviews are coming your way. But before we get on to all that, let's crack on with tonight's first debate. And as usual, I am going to kick us off.
Of course.
What's new there?
Oh, of course.
On a serious note, shocking footage recorded in Epping Forest has laid bare the truth about these far-left agitators, and I genuinely mean this. I think it's going to shock you. Epping Forest has turned into a war zone this week, and in my opinion, there are serious questions about these far-left agitators who keep showing up at every protest, escalating tensions, and then, miraculously, they just disappear, don't they? Well, after reports of multiple alleged sexual assaults by a newly arrived migrant, who denies the allegation, of course, local residents gathered to rightfully and peacefully protest their outrage at an illegal migrant hotel in Epping Forest in Essex. Sadly, the protest turned violent. And let's be clear, that does nothing to change minds. It only fuels those looking to cause chaos. And I strongly condemn violence, and anyone who genuinely does care about this matter should do the same. But the big question I want to ask is this. Who are these so-called anti-fascists? Where are they coming from? Who funds them? And why are they allowed to constantly and consistently agitate and inflame tensions where others have been previously stopped or banned? Well, what do you make of this footage?
Boss, are we filling them up?
If these are locals, why are they getting in a police car? Why are they getting in police cars? Why don't they just go home if they're local?
Yeah, for those of you listening, this footage shows refugees welcome here groups being escorted back to a train station in police vans. So let me ask the obvious question. Why would you bus people back to the train station if they're locals? The answer is rather obvious, isn't it? They aren't locals. They never are. These are hard-left activists who don't live in these communities. They're brought in like a travelling circus from protest to protest, and every time local people dare to speak out or rightfully protest what's happening in their communities, they show up. And yet, instead of being treated like a public order risk, like we've seen with the EDL marches or right-wing protests, they're effectively given first-class travel by our police, funded by you, the taxpayer, of course. Well, we reached out to Essex Police, who said this. There was a flashpoint during the protest, and when counter-protesters began to dissipate, they were escorted to the train station. This was to ensure they left the area and prevent additional violence. Why? Why do we have to ferry them back home? Is it because they aren't local? And who organises them? Who pays for this? And more importantly, why do the police leadership seem to think it's appropriate to treat them like guests and give them a free lift home at the expense of you, the taxpayer? It makes my blood boil. And let's be clear, Epping Forest is a peaceful, law-abiding community with crime well below the national average. But now it's being dragged into chaos, not by locals, but by outsiders, and failed policies of successive governments keep enabling it. We need action. Deport every single person who entered this country illegally, investigate who funds and organises these far-left activist caravans, and stop the police from acting like a taxi service for professional agitators. That is what I want a tough government to do.
If you're a US resident, let's face it, things feel uncertain right now. America's national debt, over $36 trillion and climbing. Inflation, still eating away at your savings. And the dollar, down nearly 8% this year, with more countries walking away from it. Meanwhile, the markets, one day they're up, the next day, trillions gone in a blink. So it's no surprise people are asking, where can I actually put my money and sleep at night? That's why more investors are turning to gold and silver. Gold's up over 24% this year, smashing records and soaring past $3,300 an ounce. And some analysts say we could see $6,000 gold before the end of Trump's term. And silver, it's heating up fast, driven by demand in tech, solar and defence. Some analysts say it could double in value this year. If you've been thinking about moving part of your IRA or 401k into gold or silver, tax and penalty free, our friends at Priority Gold make it simple. They're endorsed by Rich Dad's Robert Kiyosaki, ranked number 1 by Forbes and Financial Services Review, and trusted by thousands of everyday Americans. Right now, GBNews viewers can get a free wealth preservation guide from Priority Gold. It shows you exactly how to add real gold and silver to your IRA or 401k tax and penalty free. Step-by-step plain English, no pressure, just smart information you can act on. Just scan the QR code, click the link in the description below, or if you're a US resident, text WEALTH to 24999. That's WEALTH to 24999 and claim your free guide today. The price of gold can go down as well as up. Past performance does not indicate future performance. Only invest what you can afford.
Let's bring it into my panel here. Will, these people show up everywhere. And I think what this footage proves to me is that they aren't locals. And they seem to care about local matters. Why on earth should they be going to events that rightfully local communities are protesting against a severe thing like alleged sexual assault?
Well, Alex, you say that they show up everywhere. They certainly don't show up on any of the other news stations. I think that's why this is a really important piece of journalism that you've done, because there is a narrative, which is that the far right are evil, the far right are racist, bigots, creating violence and all that sort of stuff. And you never see the other side. You never see the fact that in so many instances there are coordinated left-wing groups that are trying to basically bait these people into this sort of violence. And look, we've all said, and we will continue to say, that no one condones violence at GBNews or on our panel, but at the same time, everyone can understand that people have had enough in this country, and it's certainly not helped by these left-wing lunatics who are just ignoring all of the challenges in these communities.
Renee?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Will said, but I think there's another interesting aspect to this, which as a woman, just like those mothers and grandmothers there protesting because they're worried about their children who are being sexually harassed by these people who come from different cultures with different values regarding women and who are sexually allegedly supporting, assaulting young girls. Whenever we want to speak up about sexual violence against us, these people, this left group, and many of those signs were from people like Socialist Worker, shut us down. As women, we are not allowed to say we feel like we are in danger, and we do. We are in danger.
Andy, my big problem with this is that, and I really concur with what you're saying there, Renee, people need to be able to protest in order to get things off their chest. And when these groups show up, and I want everyone to have the right to protest in our country, as many people on this panel will know, my views on this are quite clear. However, these groups are not helping the situation by showing up and counter-protesting what seems to be a local community in absolute outrage.
I mean, I think counter-protesting is fine. I think everyone here agrees that, we're all free speechers here. And I think this kind of idea that they're not from Epping, fine. The left are just better organised than the right. It's not, we shouldn't be going after the left because they're better at organising counter-protests than the right. I think that misses the point.
Do you think it's disingenuous for them to go and counter-protest what's clearly quite a local protest? Do you think they are agitating the situation?
No, I don't think so. I think, the scenes that we saw earlier in the week where, the community were throwing bricks at someone who was just trying to get to work, a guy that was working at one of these migrant hotels, not a migrant, but someone who was just trying to do his job, do his shift. People are throwing bricks at him. I think it's not unfair for that to gain national traction and for, wider groups outside of Epping to come and counter-protest. No.
OK, let me bring in Trey.
I think that's the whole reason why I sit here week in, week out, because I can see both sides of the story. I'm very much...
I've never heard you say that before.
No, absolutely, right? Because on the one hand, I think some of these groups, like you said, Socialist Workers, some of the anti-fascist movements, they generally feel that they're on a crusade to stop this country, as far as they're concerned, going towards the right. Then you have people, including the locals, like you say, are trying to protect people locally. But it's finding that balance, because some of the elements of people on the right is provocative. Like you just said, someone going about their business, he's attacked. This attacker is alleged. He hasn't been convicted yet. So it's more broad that some people don't want to see happen.
A young girl was assaulted, right?
No, I get it, but still, he hasn't yet been... He's still allegedly. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes it's easy to whip up sentiment without having any balance. And I think that's why those people...
Can I just speak to that balance, though, Andy? Yeah. On the one hand, you say it's absolutely fine for people to come in and Labour are better organised, the left are better organised at doing it. And yet, I really remember vividly that when Southport happened, the big complaint is that people came in from the outside. They were shipped in by the right-wing fascists, but that wasn't okay.
Well, I think there's a difference between shipping in to counter-protest and shipping in to riot.
These people were shipped in.
Shipping into riot and shipping into counter-protest. I think there is a difference,
The difference is there was one side where there are local community members who are upset with what is happening in their community, and there is another side that has been bussed in to make a political
point. So what about that security guard that was assaulted? He was a local community member?
No one's condoning that.
No one's condoning it.
Is he bussed in? Is it his fault that a girl allegedly got assaulted?
No
is it his
one's
fault?
condoning this violence, but the obvious point is that these people who live in these communities have had enough.
So what's throwing bricks at police vans?
No one is
gonna help with that.
No one is condoning this. But when you feel like you have,
what happened.
But when you feel like you have no democratic recourse, which is what has happened for the last 15 years in this country, you don't condone it, but you can understand why we are seeing more and more civil unrest in this country.
I think what Will's saying, that's what it points to. There is a lack of leadership on it. It's always this vacuum when it comes to leadership. There needs to be someone that says, look, listen, we are going to deal with these issues, but at the same time, certain elements don't need to whip it up and make it into this whole anti-migrant thing like you've just seen.
But they're not going to deal with it, because if they had dealt with it, this wouldn't be happening.
That's the problem.
Yeah, it seems to me that that it's OK when the left go around and bust people around the country, although I think it's really disingenuous for them to do so, because I believe these are local issues and local people should be able to, if the general consensus, let's say 99% or 90% of the locals are really angry about something, by bringing in counter-protesters, what you're doing is trying to create not only agitation, but you're trying to silence, but you're also trying to... You're trying to make the situation appear like it's more divided than it is, and that isn't true to the facts.
But also, did you see that bloke who got his teeth knocked out by the riot police?
Because
I didn't see that.
Because he was being told to go back, and he kept agitating the police.
Okay.
Shocking.
Right. That would never have happened to the counter-protesters. It just never would have happened.
We've got to be... I apologize, also want to correct myself. I did say Epping Forest, I meant Epping. I beg your pardon, everybody. I've just been to Epping Forest a lot. Right.
Have you?
Moving on.
Yes, you're doing an Epping Forest.
I do go to Epping Forest quite often. Anyway, moving on. It's a great walk. Really great, beautiful walk. Right, moving on.